Welcome to the Maliheh Paryavi podcast. I'm your host, Maliheh Paryavi. This season, I bring you real conversations with inspiring women leaders who are norm breakers and pioneers. Join my guests and I as we explore how to realize our dreams, become the leaders we deserve to be, and transform the world both within and around us. Our journey together begins right now. I cannot believe that I'm in Los Angeles and sitting with the first female private space explorer and astronaut, Anousheh Ansari. Anousheh, thank you so much for making the time to speak with me.
My pleasure. I'm glad that we could find the time to get together.
And I have to say, and I'm sure you get this a lot, but I've never met anyone who's been to space before.
Well, there are not that many. Only about 550 people have ever flown to space and only 10% women. So there are only a few of us around the globe.
Well, I'm honored to meet you.
Very nice meeting you.
So in my line of work, there's a lot of talk about empowering women to break and challenge norms and glass ceilings and pursue STEM fields. But you have gone above and beyond to even breaking Earth's atmosphere. In fact, you're also the first individual of Iranian descent, the first Muslim to ever go to space. Tell me about what drove you to want to do this, because if you ask me, no matter how amazing it sounds, I don't know if I would risk my life and risk not ever seeing my family again to go to space.
Well, it's about what you're passionate about. I certainly didn't do it to break any records or be the first at anything. I did it because I felt that I needed to do it because that's what will complete my life and my experiences. And I grew up as a child just dreaming about floating up to the skies and touching the stars. And the thought of being an astronaut and being able to explore the infinity of our universe is something that attracted me when I was 8 years old. It still attracts me to this date. And I think it's just the fact that I'm curious. I want to explore. I'm an explorer at heart. I want to learn new things. I want to learn about what is our universe made of, how it works, how far it goes, what's out there. And that curiosity always drives me to want to go out there and explore it.
So where do you think this curiosity comes from?
I don't know. I figured that everyone has this curiosity. I mean, I grew up asking a lot of questions. I think I drove my mom crazy. But when I saw something, I'm like, why is it that way? Why is it square and not round? And who made it? And why did they make it? And how does it work? And so I'm naturally curious about things and want to learn about it. So, as human beings, I believe our imagination is one of our most precious gifts we have, and we create things because of this gift we have. We can create things that do not exist, and being able to use that power and be curious about, what if I do this and what if I do that, allows us to propel humanity forward and to make our world a better place. Every technology advancement, every new things we build is seated in our curiosity and our imagination.
Even every problem, if we approach problems with an attitude of curiosity and go with that orientation, it creates openness, it creates possibilities.
Yep.
Versus if we go towards things with judgment or expectations or some attachment to this end result, we confine ourselves. So I think it's amazing that you've always had this gift. But what ecological research shows that almost all of us are born with curiosity.
Absolutely.
And however, many of us, it gets beaten out of us throughout our lives by the societal norms and expectations. Like, I know growing up, I was curious about so many things, but it's like, well, as a girl, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't want to do that. At the same time, I had a brother, and sometimes I wonder if I didn't have a brother, I may have never known that there's this alternative universe where you could do things that you're just curious about just because you're curious. And so there was a lot of resistance to being a curious individual, for me at least, growing up. And I think eventually it starts fading. It's like a muscle that gets weakened over time.
Absolutely.
And it really takes effort and practice to cultivate it. And for me, it's taken a very conscious effort to really reconnect to what I'm curious about. And this comes up in so much of my work with women in leadership. And when they're facing challenges, I tell them, approach it with curiosity, because it just opens doors to so many possibilities, including, in your case, like going to space and doing all these remarkable things that you're doing. Did you ever face any resistance to your curiosity? Did you ever get these messages that, oh, you shouldn't want to do that, or that's too ambitious, or that's crazy, you know?
Absolutely. Being, girl growing up in Iran, wanting to go to space, or just being a woman in the tech industry, I've always been the oddball in the room, and definitely had my share of people telling me what I can or cannot do, what I should or should not do, or what's appropriate. And as you said, the society norm is that, especially coming from a culture in Middle East, there are certain norms, that things that women should do. And I don't want to say that this is only in Middle East. Actually, it still exists here today, in Western societies as well. And I don't know why, but my blessing has been that I really didn't pay much attention to it. And I'm like, it was like the more they told me I can't do something or I shouldn't do something, the more I wanted to do it and prove them wrong. It's like, why not? I'm one of those people that if you ask me not to do something, or you tell me something, you better be prepared to explain why, because I just don't take no for an answer easily. And I think, when you talk about curiosity, it is important. And we are told asking question after a certain age is not okay, and we become afraid of questioning things because there are norms that you never question. There are rules and laws, and we box ourselves or our children the way we teach them, and boxing them in believing that what they're told is golden and it can't question it ever. That just stifles any type of development and change, because you never question the status quo. You never want to advance things forward. And that's what we need to change at our schools and universities. And I tell people, even laws of physics, you can always question laws of physics. I am in love of astronomy as a science, because it's one of those sciences when you learn, the teachers will tell you, well, this is what we think right now, but we're not 100% sure. It may be different tomorrow, because even science is not perfect. If Albert Einstein never questions the laws of gravity, the Newtonian gravity, we would never have the theory of relativity. So anything that's out there, even in textbook, you should question. Prove it to yourself again and again and again until something otherwise can happen. So I think being able to feel freedom to ask questions, it's a fundamental right that we should develop in every human being, whether it's as a child, as an adult, in a workplace. Every law, every regulation, everything that we want to adhere to, there should be a reason for it, and you should be able to ask the questions and be able to be convinced that yes, is it the right thing or not for yourself.
What you just said reminded me of my conversation with Angela Duckworth, who's at the Character Lab, and they're really working on how to study human development. And curiosity is one of the things that they're really trying to understand and also promote, and as part of being a well-rounded human being. And I feel like so many of us, we get caught up in this, what should I be doing, and this linear trajectory of even pursuing education or the degrees, or as Iranians, it's like go to law school or go to medical school, and
Yeah.
I didn't want any of those. What are you doing with your life? And it's so important to just trust that curiosity, and also encourage it in each other. I think sometimes, as women, we may be curious about something and everybody else is like, oh yeah, maybe just leave that for now. And instead of saying, maybe you should engage with it for a while and see where that leads you, and just try, and really trying new things. And I think one of the reasons people don't do that as much is because they're so afraid of failing. And this fear of failure, I think, is also, this came up with my conversation with Angela Duckworth as well, is, it can be so limiting because there's a whole world out there we can explore. And if we start thinking about failure as an opportunity to grow and as an opportunity to learn and evolve and have this growth mindset as we go through life, then it'll allow us to become more curious.
Absolutely. I think it's what you say about failures, especially true for women, because as young girls, we grow up, our moms wanting us, and maybe our dads too, wanting us to be perfect and always getting good grade and act properly and dress properly and be nice and do everything perfectly, and we are then conditioned to be afraid of failing and not being perfect all the time, and that prevents us from trying new things. But there's no way you can learn something new without allowing yourself to experience it, experiment with it, and fail at it potentially. We see children trying to learn how to walk, and they take a step and they fall down and they get up again and take another step. The whole life should be like that, where we experiment and fail and learn from it and do it again better. And sometimes we're not sure what our lives is all about, so we need to be able to think about experiencing different things and finding our passion and finding what we're good at and finding what we want to do for the rest of our lives. And without allowing ourselves to try new things, then we'll never find it.
I'm so glad you said that, because I think some may be listening to this conversation and thinking, well, she's always known what her passion was, and I have no idea what my passion is. And it's not always something you just know. It's something you find by exploring and by trying new things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find always I'll find new things that I want to do. It doesn't mean that I lose my passion and excitement for space, but as I'm exposed to new ideas, new technologies, new fields, new inventions, I'm always, my curiosity drives me to learn more about it. And yeah, maybe it won't match the passion I have for space, but certainly it has given me different purposes in life and how I use my time and what I get involved with. Being in field of technology, it has really opened my eyes to possibilities and new ways and new things that are created out there. And I'm an electrical engineer. I don't know anything about biology, but I read all these advancements in the biomedical industry and health and nutrition and how everything will be changed with CRISPR technology. And I don't understand probably 85% of what's in these articles, but then it drives me to go learn about them and read more about them. So I think it's important for us to allow ourselves to learn new things and experiment with new things, because we'll find new passions and new areas that we want to be involved with.
And I think when people start exploring new things and finding new passions, there's an element of fear, because we get stuck in our routines and a regular mode of life. And when something's new and different, we feel that this is scary. But it's actually, there's a real thrill and excitement to really trying new things. And I really want to encourage our audience to embrace that. But coming back to the fear of failure for a second. So when you were in that, about to launch, were you at all scared that, what if this goes wrong? Did that even come to your mind? Or did you have like an internal knowing that this is just what I need to do and I'll be okay?
So a combination. I wasn't afraid. I was fully expected to be scared out of my mind, but I wasn't sitting there because I felt like, this is what I'm meant to do and this is what I need to do, and it's part of who I am. So I wasn't scared. Having had the opportunity to train for close to a year and learning about everything gave me a confidence of what I'm doing, and so that was helpful. But at the same time, because I was doing something that was meaningful and purposeful for me, I'm like, it's okay if I die. And I was completely at peace. But the night before my launch, I had written a letter to every family member that was close to me, and I had given it to, because I was in quarantine, I couldn't see any of them. So I had given it to person in charge, and I said, after I'm on board, after the launch, you hand this to my family. To me, I wanted them all to know that I love them and that I'm doing this because it's important for me, and that I appreciate everything they have ever done to help me be who I am and be where I was at that day, because I also knew that I couldn't be sitting on top of that rocket if it wasn't for the support of all my friends and family who made it possible for me. In one way or another, they had allowed me to be there that day, and I wanted to, show them my appreciation for the part they played in my life. And I was most important emotion I felt sitting on top of that rocket was gratitude, because I was like, it's amazing how all the dots in my life connected to allow me to be there. And this connecting the dots is something I truly believe in life. And I think this learning and curiosity and exposing yourself to different things is what allows you to see those dots and connect them in a way that helps you shape your life. You know how as children we have these books and there's like these dots and they're numbered and you connect them and then a picture emerges. Life is like that, but the numbers are missing. And only when you start learning about new things, you can see the patterns and connect them. And then your life starts shaping and having meaning and showing you a path forward, which becomes your path in the universe.
I think that's so powerful because so many of us think that I need to know where I'm going in order to take the first step.
Yeah, that never happens.
And that never happens, even though you had this vision that you want to go to space, but you didn't really know how you're going to do this. You had to start from somewhere, and you didn't immediately start training for your launch. You were an entrepreneur. You went to college. You were an entrepreneur. So I think that's such a powerful message for people to hear, because there's this fear of the unknown, and we stay within the confines of what is safe and what we know, but there's this angst and there's this frustration. We know something's missing. We know we're not really happy, but we don't really want to take a step to really even open our minds to think about, what am I really curious about? Sometimes we may not even know what we're curious about, and it's about really sitting with that discomfort. It is uncomfortable that I don't know what I'm curious about, and maybe starts with, I'm curious to try this new tea today, or starts with these little things, and it's like a muscle, and it gets stronger, and then eventually you're like, oh, I'm curious about how I can change the world, like I was just doing,
No, absolutely true. I truly believe in the fact that no matter, even if you know what you want to do, there is no way you can plot a perfect path to your desired destination, because the world around you changes. Nothing stays static. So I love this, proverb or saying, the Buddhist saying that says a journey of 1,000 steps starts with the first step. That first step toward your destination is what allows you to take the next step and the next step and the one after that. But as long as you stand still, you're not going anywhere. And that is the worst thing you can do with your life, because time continues to tick and move forward, and you will be just sitting there and contemplating, should I take the first step or not? And just take the first step. If you decide that that's not the right step, just take a step back, but don't stand where you are and just contemplate. Just do something. That's one. I never get involved with any project that just talks about doing things and not do anything. So philosophizing things, it's not my cup of tea. There are many philosophers out there, and I read their books and I admire them, and it inspires me maybe to do something. But I'm not just about philosophy. I'm like, take that idea and do something with it, or just go home.
I mean, it is important to sometimes ground yourself first before taking a step to make sure you're doing with the right intentions and for the right purpose, and it's really aligned with yourself. But, not just sitting there for years at a time, wondering, what should I be doing? It starts with really trying something new.
Yeah, and I, again, even if you're not sure, you don't even have to be sure, because sometimes people, like, how do I know that this is the right thing? You'll never know until you try it. Because I know people who, for example, thought that they want to be doctors, and they go and finish, medical school, and then they start practicing, and they're like, I hate what I'm doing, and they go back. So it's important for you to just try it. If you don't know what you want to do, try anything. Try something that you think you might like. But trying to do a paper exercise of what you do, It's good to do some research. So I'm not just saying just jump at the first thing. Do some research, do some reading, try to see what speaks to you, what makes you excited, and when you read an article, how does it make you feel? So start evaluating your emotions when you are around a subject or a topic or a place or someone, and that will guide you as to what is interesting and exciting to you, and then take it one step further and see if the excitement still exists, and then one step further, and that's how you learn what you like.
It is really about connecting with ourselves and staying connected with ourselves. And it's not always a mental exercise, it's also a feeling exercise. And as you just said, connecting with our emotions. And as we take the step and the next step to see how we feel, and whether if we get an internal hit when something's not really quite right. A lot of us, are scared to feel these uncomfortable feelings, and we kind of shove them like, no, I should keep going. But sometimes it's information, it's powerful information that maybe you don't need to change directions all the way, but maybe it's a change in perspective, maybe it's a different approach, maybe it's something else. So really tuning in and connecting with ourselves, I feel like is key, and that's just something you alluded to, so I wanted to highlight that.
One of the maybe exercise that the friend shared with me that's helpful at so many different levels is that close your eyes and imagine that there is a newspaper article that will be published tomorrow, and you are the headline on the first page. Just imagine, what do you want that headline to say about you? How do you see yourself in that article? And that helps you maybe solidify some, at least, area of interest to you that you think you can make a difference. We go through different phases of life. I'm older, so I'm in what I call my third phase of productive life. You start looking at the world differently. When you're young, it's your informative time. You are exploring, you are curious, you're learning, and I continue to be curious and learn. So that part of my life has never stopped. I'm always young at heart in that regard. But then you're sort of trying to create your life and career and figuring things out. And then in the phase I'm in, and it has always been part of my life, but more so now, is that, okay, so how do I want to live a legacy in a way? Not even a legacy, but where do I see contributing to this world? How do I contribute to this world? What do I want my life to mean when I'm gone? And that sort of helps you prioritize how you spend your time and what you want to do. There are all these talks about your massive transformative purpose, your MTP. Finding that MTP, finding what do you see your role is in this universe, because we're not here to just live and be gone. You want to be here and contribute something, and it doesn't always have to be big. Your contribution may be to put a smile on someone close to you. It may be that your contribution is to help heal people, to teach people, to teach young children to learn something. I don't know what it is. Each person has something inside that drives them. Maybe it's to cook the most delicious food for people to enjoy. And that is what makes you feel like you're contributing to the happiness of others. But it's always, I think, in relationship to others and to the universe, your community, to the world, to the globe. And it's different for each person. But finding what that thing is and then trying to fulfill that purpose in your life becomes even more important when you reach a certain age and certain part of your life. And finding meaning, it is very important.
So, what do you say to young girls out there who are really curious about something and are really passionate about something, but they're getting all these messages? No, you shouldn't do this. You can't do this. This isn't for you. And there's all these expectations. What advice do you have for them?
I tell them to tell them, it is what you want to do and you're going to go do it. I mean, I wouldn't listen to anything anyone tells me.
You're going to make a lot of parents angry right now.
Well, they shouldn't be giving that advice if they're getting angry. I think it is absolutely important for any child to be able to pursue anything they want. Now, whether they succeed or fail at it, it's a different story. but it's a lesson learned that will help them to shape the rest of their lives. Now, my also advice to the parents is that be there, support them, help them, guide them, expose them to people. Like if I say I want to be a chef, maybe if you know someone who's a chef, connect me with that person. Say, hey, go talk to this person, see if this is what you really want to do, instead of telling me, no, you can't be a chef. So I think parents can be great counselors and sort of guidance counselors for their kids, but not to stop them from trying new things. And as a young woman, young girl who wants to do something, I would say don't let anyone tell you you can't or you shouldn't, because that's not true. And you can and you will be able to do anything you want to do. It's as women, we put the limitation on ourselves, and it's a mental limitation in our head. So because it's in our head, first we need to change our way of thinking about it. So if we can switch our mind and say, no, I can't do this and it's okay for me to do this, then we can find a way to do it.
I'm so glad you said that, because this leads me to the next topic I want to talk to you about really expanding our imagination. And you're an advocate of us using our imaginations, and I believe that we need it more than ever, especially when it comes to empowering women, especially internally. The reality is we have inherited a world that was originally designed and built by men for men. And the world was never built with us in mind. And when women started to enter the public space, for the most part, we've had to adapt to the system. And this International Women's Day, with your help, I hope we can inspire the women and girls who may be listening to this to really use their imaginations and think about what the world or even their individual lives would look like if it was designed and built by themselves, or what I call a woman-designed world. And I should say this isn't about excluding men and pushing men to the side. Imagining a woman-designed world is a mental exercise to help us identify the gaps in the status quo and find ways to enhance the system so that it is inclusive and will enrich everyone's lives. It really is about giving ourselves that permission to want things that better meet our needs and help us achieve our dreams. And in fact, I really believe you're a prime example of someone who has perhaps always been doing this and been proactive about redesigning your world and the world altogether in order to achieve your dreams. And now as the CEO of XPRIZE Foundation, where you have a very small goal of changing the world and solving all the world's most challenging problems. And you've recently started the $1 billion Fund for Women to support women-founded companies. How has using your imagination empowered you to break all the barriers that you have broken to achieve your goals and redesign your world?
So what you said is so important, and it's part of the reason I'm at XPRIZE Foundation, because it was a big leap that I made and changing career. It was important because I felt that we're at a critical point in time where, when you look around us, our world is controlled in a way and will be shaped by the way technologies, especially exponential technologies, will be developed and change our world. And I felt like being at these boardrooms, being an entrepreneur, being in these tech startup forums or incubators and all that, I saw that there is a huge issue, and that is that the voices around the table that are designing and deciding the direction of these technologies is not diverse enough. There are not enough women or diverse voices around the table. And what that means is that it will perpetuate the issue that you described, which is our world then will be designed around the needs and the wants and the ideas of a few and not the whole. And in order for this world to work for us and be a world that we want to live in, and it would be a beautiful, diverse world, it requires those conversations now, because these technologies are developing faster than anything we can imagine. And if we don't alter their course or impact their course now, it will be too late later. So I felt that XPRIZE Foundation will be the perfect platform for not only me, but for the world to influence the direction these technologies take. at XPRIZE, one of my goals and missions is to make sure that as we launch prizes, as we bring sponsors, as we try to find solutions to these grand challenges in the world, that we have diverse teams, diverse groups of people, advisors, sponsors, everyone who's involved brings diversity to the table, because it is absolutely critical in order to really achieve that outcome we want in 30, 40 years from now. I hope that XPRIZE will be one of many organizations that would encourage and enable that. I think, being a woman, I can speak from just my point of view because I'm just one part of the diversity spectrum. But we think about things differently. Whether it's our genes or the way we're brought up, or the fact that we think of ourselves as mothers and caretakers, and we think of communities more, we think of a whole, we think of taking care of everyone. We are not driven by ego and wanting to just lift ourselves up, but we feel that the rising tides brings everyone up. So we are more collaborative, and having all those aspects of our personalities be part of designing a new technology, whether it's in machine learning and coming up with all these algorithms that will drive everything and decide for us in the future whether we're driving or building something or designing something, or it's in robotics and how robotics will be used, or in nanotechnology or synthetic genomes. All these things, I think it's important for us to have these diverse voices at the table, and have the imagination of women and young people and old people all around the same table, so we can design a future that will serve everyone, not just a small group of people.
That's amazing. I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing. And I really hope that other women who are listening to this, especially women in leadership, really see this as inspiration, that they are designers. Women in leadership, you have the opportunity to redesign your organization, even the projects you're doing. It's all shaping our world in one way or another. I think it's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day that you forget that in your positions, you're actually creating change and you can direct the change. So it's important to create some space to really sit and think about, what change do I really want to create? Really allowing ourselves to use our imaginations and to see ourselves as designers of this world. Another thing I want to talk to you about in the little time we have left is you are navigating so many different terrains. You're traveling, you're speaking, you have all these responsibilities. How do you manage everything that you do? Like how do you get through the day? And
I'm trying to see if I can find a device that will extend 24 hours into 48 hours, because right now I am not sleeping enough and not having enough time to do everything. So if you're asking me advice for life-work balance, I have not found the secret sauce, and I don't know if it exists, to be honest with you. I have dedicated my life to doing things that I feel are important, not only for me, but for the world. And I get joy out of it. So as long as I am spending every minute of my time doing things that I feel that is important, that it gives me joy, that it's, I think will do good for the world, then I'm okay to lose some sleep. But there are few things that I don't compromise, and I feel that it's important to give me the energy and the stamina to do what I do.
do you mind sharing? Yeah.
No, of course, no. One thing is that I exercise, and to me, exercise is part of my sort of meditation, if you would. It gives me energy. It keeps my body active and ready to be able to do more than maybe a normal body does. So that I try to be almost religious about it, whether waking up very early in the morning to get at least a few minutes, even if it's 30 minutes, to do something active, even if it's going for a walk. I try to do that. I try to make sure that I find time. Not every day happens that way, but at least once a week, to be outside and spend some good time in nature. I love the night skies. I love the skies altogether. So just spending time and soaking in the energy of nature and the beautiful world that we live in reminds me of, what's important in life. And just either listening to something new and learning something through a podcast or movie or reading an article. So learning new things, it's always exciting to me. It keeps my mind sharp and going. So those are some of the important things, little things I guess I do to just keep up the energy. And I'm human, so I'm not always up 100%. There are times that I'm down and exhausted. You just need to recognize that and give yourself a little break and re-energize and get back in the game again.
That's awesome. And I think what's great is what you said, work-life balance doesn't really exist if you're really pursuing what you're passionate about, because that really nourishes you.
Yeah, it's your life.
Yeah, it energizes you. You don't feel like you're working even if you're running around.
Exactly. It's not work life, it's life.
It is life.
And it's like, how do you live your life where you have multiple priorities and you manage your priorities at different times. And I don't have children, and I have tremendous appreciation for especially women who have children, and they have even a tougher job of balancing giving enough love and attention to their children and being a guiding light for them, and then pursuing their passions and careers. So I am always at awe of them. And if you want to talk about super women, they are definitely the super women that I bow to.
Thank you for sharing your light and being a guiding light to so many and inspiring so many. And thank you for making the time to speak with me today. This has been such a treat.
Thank you. Thank you for making the effort, and thank you for the work you're doing, because I think it will help a lot of young women and people out there to maybe find some nuggets that will help them shape their life in a different way.
Thank you for listening to the Maliheh Paryavi podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and subscribe to my newsletter on my website for more inspiration and support. Until next time, be well and keep on shining.